The allegations of inconsistency against Marx's value theory have been disproven. The evidence has been in the public domain for more than 20 years. Yet the myth of inconsistency is almost as ubiquitous as before. Why is this so? You see me on the street. You always act surprised. You say, "How are you? Good luck." But you don't mean it. You know, as well as me, you'd rather see me paralyzed. Why don't you just come out once and scream it?
Okay. I'd rather see you paralyzed. You are the Antichrist. Go fuck yourself.
The major reason why the myth of inconsistency is almost as ubiquitous as before is undoubtedly that you, the gatekeepers to the broader public, the specialists in the field, Marxist and Sophian economists, have not done your part to set the record straight.
Your prices are arbitrary.
You've done almost nothing to set the record straight, especially in comparison with the time and energy that you spent making false charges against Marx and correcting the alleged inconsistencies and errors.
We are working in the tradition of Marx.
If you were working in the tradition of Marx, you would jump at the chance to dispel the myth of inconsistency. Why have you responded in the opposite manner?
You are vulgar economists in Marxist garb.
Failure to accept new ideas is not the main issue here. They don't need to accept that Marx's disputed conclusions are true in order to acknowledge that they are logically valid. They don't need to accept that they are logically valid in order to acknowledge that there exists an interpretation, according to which the conclusions are indeed valid. They can even continue to believe that Marx's conclusions are not valid, while acknowledging that the so-called proofs of inconsistency have been decisively refuted. And you can certainly do all of this, clearly and forthrightly, without trying to divert readers' attention or change the subject.
You are new orthodox Marxists.
So the key question is not why they don't accept the new findings that vindicate Marx, but why the findings have been suppressed.
Marx forgot to transform the inputs.
Drawing on his very extensive study and documentation of such suppression in the physical sciences and elsewhere, Brian Martin concludes that a person who challenges the conventional wisdom is likely first to be ignored, then dismissed, and finally, if these responses are inadequate, attacked.
Death to the Antichrist.
Martin also points out that dissident ideas are ignored and dismissed because scientists can develop a psychological interest in particular theories and methods. If a challenger comes along with a simple alternative to the theory on which they have built their careers, most scientists are not likely to be receptive, since their status will be undermined and their lifelong commitment apparently wasted.
Prices and the rate of profit must be determined simultaneously.
And because your status will be undermined and your lifelong commitment apparently wasted, that's why you have suppressed the new findings in value theory.
The corrections are mere technical revisions. Workers produce some corn, but their wages allow them to buy back only some of the corn. And capitalists get their profit by selling the rest of the corn.
Corn is their technical term for stuff.
Yes, it is. You're fucking Antichrist. Tote that A matrix. Lift that maximum eigenvalue.
I ain't gonna work on Piero's farm no more.
You have to. You are our slave. You must do what we say, or else. No more reindeer games for you.
One would expect that economists who work in the tradition of Marx would be quite receptive to findings that vindicate the logical validity of his value theory. But you're not actually committed to Marx's theories.
Negative melt, negative melt, negative melt.
You're committed to the so-called corrections of Marx.
Infinite regress, infinite regress, infinite regress.
A great deal of effort has been put into correcting Marx and to pursuing research programs founded on correct versions of his work. Indeed, Marxian and Straussian economics have consisted of little else, at least in the English-speaking world, since Sweezy wrote The Theory of Capitalist Development 70 years ago.
The TSSI is incoherent.
And since Marxian and Straussian economics have been little more than a bunch of corrections of Marx and a bunch of research programs founded on correct versions of his work, much research will have been in vain, and several research programs will lose their foundation if the allegations of internal inconsistency and the consequent need to correct Marx go away. That wouldn't be a big deal if, as you always claim, the so-called corrections were mere technical revisions. In that case, it would be easy for you to reconstitute your research programs on the basis of Marx's own theory.
You are the Antichrist.
Yet, in reclaiming Marx's Capital, a refutation of the myth of inconsistency, Andrew Kleiman shows that the revisions are far from mere technicalities. The original and the revised versions of Marx's theory lead to conflicting conclusions in many important respects. The most obvious and politically important case is that the original theory and the physicalist revisions arrive at diametrically opposite conclusions regarding the effect of labor-saving technological change on the rate of profit.
You're mentally unbalanced.
So, because the revisions are not mere technical corrections, what would happen if the myth of inconsistency were to disappear? Before you could reconstitute your research programs on the basis of Marx's own theory, you would have to abandon your current theoretical perspectives, to which you seem deeply committed. But there is also another option. You could remain fully committed to your current perspectives and research programs, but cheerfully accept that Marx's value theory is logically valid, and do your part to set the record straight. You would simply need to acknowledge that your theories are alternatives to Marx's theory, and call them alternatives.
Negative melt, negative melt, negative melt.
Why haven't you embraced this simple and honest solution? One reason is that they want to have their cake and eat it too. On the one hand, they disagree with at least a large part of Marx's critique of political economy, when it is understood in a way that makes it logically valid. On the other hand, they regard themselves as Marx's successors.
We are the champions. We are the champions. No time for losers. Cause we are the champions. You must do what we say, or else.
The myth of inconsistency allows you to have it both ways. It lets you repudiate Marx's own theory, but still portray yourselves as his successors. You just have to claim, as you do, that you have eliminated Marx's errors, without undermining his basic account of how capitalism functions. But if the myth of inconsistency were to disappear, you would need to choose between having your cake and eating it.
Your prices are arbitrary.
Another reason why you don't embrace the simple and honest solution is that your research programs are not compelling enough to stand on their own, uncoupled from the supposed need to correct Marx that gave rise to them. Even Straussianism, The strongest and least traditionally Marxist of these research programs would not have much appeal, and its key theorems would have much less significance if it could no longer be portrayed as the sole, rigorous formulation of the surplus approach founded by Ricardo and Marx.
Go fuck yourself.
So you cannot reclaim Marx's value theory in its original form without abandoning your physicalist perspective. But you also cannot accept it as a viable alternative to your own theories without relinquishing your claim to be Marx's successors and jeopardizing your research programs. Both options are very unattractive. The only option that remains is to try to disqualify Marx's original theory. To accomplish this task, the well-established proofs of inconsistency are just what you need. They let you disqualify Marx's original theory effortlessly, decisively, and on seemingly neutral and scientific grounds.
The corrections are mere technical revisions. Workers produce some corn, but their wages allow them to buy back only some of the corn, and the capitalists get their profit by selling the rest of the corn.
So, given the alternatives you face, you have a clear and strong interest in preserving the myth of inconsistency. This is why the new findings in value theory have been suppressed, and why so little has been done to set the record straight.
Go fuck yourself. You are the Antichrist. Infinite regress, infinite regress, infinite regress.
If the myth of inconsistency persists much longer, people will go on believing that Marx's capital cannot be reclaimed as a totality, and the resources needed to reclaim it will not be forthcoming. Yet the refutations of the inconsistency allegations give us an excellent opportunity to help turn things around. If we shine a bright spotlight on these refutations and keep it focused on them, shining brightly until the myth of inconsistency is eliminated. Marx is a man that the authorities came to blame for something that he'd never done. But it won't be over till they clear his name.